Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. And thank you for subscribing to the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I'm 12 Kyle. Check this out. We're going to talk about homecoming season, right? So, at the time of this recording, it's what we call homecoming season. Um, this is the time of the year where a lot of colleges have their homecoming games. And a couple of weeks ago, got a chance to go back to my alma mater, South Carolina State University, and experience homecoming. And it was my first homecoming that I had attended in the last 5 years. So I got some stories. uh, so I guess I probably should start with the obvious. What is homecoming? Homecoming is, and I'm going to speak from an HBCU perspective because South Carolina State University is a HBCU, a historically black college and university. I can't tell you what happens at the white schools. I don't know how homecoming is. Although I will say, my homegirl, one of my best friends, you heard on this podcast, Dr. Jamel, um, she went to Duke and she said Duke had a live homecoming. That's kind of hard for me to believe, but hey, Duke. I mean, she went to Duke football games. She never went to a basketball game in her career at Duke. So go figure. But shout out to Jamel. Um, Nonetheless, homecoming, it's a chance for you to come back to the school. It's surrounded obviously by the game, the homecoming game. Um, and you get a chance to reconnect, have fun, party, and hook up, you know, um, for whatever hookup could be. And it's different because my experiences with homecoming when I was in school are totally different than my experiences as an alum. Um, when I was in school, as many of you know, or maybe you don't know, I played football at South Carolina State. So um, we didn't we didn't participate in the homecoming activities throughout the week or anything like that because you couldn't because the focus was class and football, or for some football and class, or for others just football. Um, but yeah, it was you didn't participate in that stuff because we had you just didn't have time, to be honest. Um, and I remember someone telling me it was like you'll understand and appreciate homecoming a lot more when you become alum as opposed to because now you really can't do anything. So we hung out and we're kicking and party after the homecoming game, after on Saturday night. But other than that, my homecoming experience, relatively speaking, during the week was non-existent. I mean, you might catch a party if you were bold enough to go out, but I mean, the coaches knew that it was homecoming weekend, it was parties every night, so they were going to be checking curfew, so you didn't want to break curfew, so whatever. Um, but one of the key things that I learned a couple of years ago, um, as an alum, and I graduated in 1996, so it's been this year I'm celebrating 25 years graduate being an alum. So I learned early, that I saw people come back to homecoming and they quickly realized like you can't go hard like you used to. You just can't. Like the idea or the concept of partying all night, tailgating, getting drunk, you know, when you get older, man, it's just not the plan. It's just not the move. But some, get back on campus and think that they're 18 again. And I understand. I get it, right? But this year was kind of cool. Actually, this year was really, really, really cool. First, the obvious, dealing with COVID. This was our first homecoming within the pandemic. And so the university issued a statement that they encourage people to get a COVID test prior to coming to homecoming. They scaled back on some of the events. Also, like there was no homecoming parade, which was, I understood. I mean, you want to try to mitigate as much as you can as far as large crowds, but you're going to a football game. So, I mean, you can't social distance at a football game. You can't, they encourage people to wear masks even though the game was outside. Um, but my wife is an alum as well. That's where we met. We both got, COVID tests before we left to go to, um, so we got our results before, like the day of homecoming, I guess that Friday. Um, but we didn't leave until Saturday. We just because where my school is located in Orangeburg, South Carolina, it's only 3 hour drive from Atlanta, where I live. So, we skipped. We normally would get down there on Fridays, early Friday, but like I said, with COVID, we kind of scaled back a little bit too. We wanted to kind of, obviously be as safe as you possibly could. Um, but that was cool, and I know a lot of people that got tested, and then subsequently, we got tested a couple of days after we got, well, maybe about a week after we got back, just to make sure, because that's what you want to do. You want to make sure that you're not spreading the virus or that you have it or anything like that. So you want to be as safe as possible. Um, I had my mask on, particularly at the game, and but there are times when you take it off, you're eating and drinking, or you're talking to people, or whatever the case may be. I try to keep my distance as much as I could. Um, but there were times where I was around people that I knew what I did have my mask on. So I mean, but we were outside, and I tried to, again, try to do my best. Try to be as safe as possible, and it's something that obviously was in the back of my brain. And you're at the game, and a lot of people didn't have on masks, and you're sitting outside, and the wind is blowing. Now I will say this much: it was hot. It had been a minute since I had been to a homecoming game where it was that hot. Like the temperature was, I think it was 86. Um, and where we were tailgating at, and I'll get to that in just a minute. Where we were tailgating at was on our football practice field, and that field holds heat. Like it retains and it keeps heat like you wouldn't believe. And I know that from playing football. So it was probably about a good 92, 93 degrees on that practice field while we were tailgating. So um tailgated, actually went to two tailgates. My brother, who's also an alum, um, he and my sister-in-law came down. She's an alum as well. They came down and they had a tailgate, and and then some of my teammates had a tailgate. So I was at kind of back and forth between both tailgates, but always good seeing my brother, my niece, my sister-in-law. And it was just good seeing people, man. I think overall, even with COVID, South Carolina State's homecoming wasn't as large as it normally is, but that was cool because I think, considering the fact that we are in a pandemic, we had more than enough people there. It wasn't overcrowded, but it was a nice crowd at the game. Um, and that was cool because, again, we're in the middle of a pandemic, so you want to try to keep it as cool as possible, because the numbers aren't going down anytime soon, right? So we did that, and the tailgate was dope, man. It was dope tailgate with my teammates. I met some teammates, some younger cats who I didn't know. I just knew from our group chat, and wild dudes, man. And then just seeing some of my old teammates, for me, is always a pleasure because very few people know what you do as an athlete or what you've done as an athlete other than the people that went through that same particular path with you. And to see guys that you fought with and blood, sweat, and tears with on the football field is precious. And I don't take those experiences and times lightly, because we get together and of course we're talking shit and we're reminiscing about what happened in one particular game, or what happened on the practice field, or what happened in the dorm, or just crazy stories. um but yeah, it's always dope to connect with my teammates. obviously, if you know me and you listen to this podcast, one of my closest friends and one of my teammates, my man Mo, was there, and before I could get settled in on campus, one of the first people I saw was this cat. He was like, "Yo, where Mo at?" So that's the common question. Like people will ask me, "Where's Mo?" Because we were always together, on the football field, off the field, and so people would ask where Mo was, or if they saw him, they say, "Yo, where's KD?" They want to know where KD is. So, um, that's always comical in and of itself. Like, and we kind of go back and forth between each other, be like, "Yo, did you see such and such? Hey, such and such asked about you. Did you see such and such?" Like that. So, but yeah, I got a chance to hang out with him, and that's my dog, so it's always cool. Um, and then obviously with my wife being an alum, people asking, "Well, where's Sharice?" Oh, I saw Sharice earlier. So I got a lot of that because it's funny because like we we went to the game together and we hung out like when we first got there. And then when it was time for her to get with her, sorority sisters or whatever, deltas, she went over there and I went over here with my teammates. And so like, for a large part of the day, we knew where we were, but we weren't up under each other or anything. And that's cool. I mean, like, I get it. She needs to spend time with her friends and stuff like that. And, I spend time with my teammates and we ain't tripping. Um, so that was cool. I could actually, when we sat in the stands, I could actually see her from where I was sitting. But nonetheless, she was with, her crew or whatever like that. So that was cool. But it's always interesting people saying, well, where's I saw Sharice earlier. She was over there. Like I was like, you don't have to explain to me where. I know she's around here somewhere. So um, but it's always good seeing old friends. Always good seeing old friends. I saw I saw one of my boys, this cat named Psycho. I'm not gonna get into how he got the name Psycho, but me and Psycho, we've been down since our freshman year. He lived in the dorm. He lived across the hall from me in the dorm in Mitchell Hall. And man, it's good seeing Psycho. Psycho's one of the Psycho's he's short, right? And I'm short. So like Psycho's like I'm 5'7". Psycho's probably like 5'6.5". Like I'm a little bit taller than Psycho. But when we were in school, we always used to have like these short jokes for each other. Like me and Psycho would literally sit in the dorm and like crack jokes on each other about being short or how tall we were, literally for like hours at a time. I mean, like some of the best short jokes I've ever heard has come from him. Like, and I'm sure he'll say the same thing. But it was good seeing him. I knew he was coming. I didn't see him until the end of homecoming, but I saw him and dapped him up, hugged him, and we chopped it up for a quick second. Um, who else did I see? Oh, my man, Chris Harley. I'm gonna give his full government name, Chris Harley. Uh, it's funny because I was on campus and I was about to leave campus for the day on Saturday, and I was walking toward my brother's tailgate, and I saw this dude, and I saw him from the back, and I really wasn't even paying attention. I was walking through a crowd of people. I had my mask on, and it was starting to get dark. Um, and so I kind of looked to the left, I mean my right, and I realized it was him. So then I walked around and I positioned myself because he was talking to a young lady. I positioned myself where he could see me, but he was so focused in on the young lady. And the lady looked over like, why is this dude staring? So I was standing at him, and I was in like my little b-boy stance, and I was staring at him, and then he said, "Excuse me, one second, one second." So he came over, gave me dap, we hugged up, and so he started chopping up. So he went, he's like, "Man," he said, "I got something for you, and I'm gonna give it to you just because I love you and you my boy." And I said, "What you got?" So he went in the bag. This fool he gave me a bottle of apple Ciroc. I mean, a bottle of Ciroc. Who walks around with a bag full of bottles of apple Ciroc? But that's just Chris, man. So in typical Chris fashion, after he gives me the bottle of Ciroc, he does what I knew he was gonna do. he started talking about Tupac and Biggie, which has been the thing that, if you know me and Chris, that like even on social media, that's the thing that we've always gone back and forth about, Tupac and Biggie. And so he asked this young lady, he said, I got to ask you a question. He said, now you tell me who's better, Tupac or Biggie? Like, and I was like, man, you really doing this right here in front of this young lady? So I said, she don't want to embarrass you. She going to say Tupac just because she like you like that. So we laughed about that, but it was good seeing him. Who else did I see? I saw a lot of people. Oh man, listen, I saw Crystal. Crystal is one of my best friends, man. Me and Crystal, we literally go back to like our freshman year. Like I'm talking peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, no hours freshman year. Like so Crystal, I was at the tailgate with my teammates, and one of my teammates who was DJing, shout out to DJ Dre, djdre.com. Dre had a stage where we were tailgating. So I was standing up on the stage. I didn't have a microphone, but I was standing up on the stage. And Crystal had run into Sharice, and she was like, where's my boy? And she was like, oh, he's over there with his teammates. He's standing on stage. And so, excuse me. And so she walks over, and I don't see her at first. And then she just comes and stands in front of the stage, and she's just smiling. And I was like, yo. So I jumped down, give her a big hug, and we chopped it up. And it's like, man, I hadn't seen Crystal. I mean, we're friends on Facebook or whatever, but I hadn't seen Crystal probably in about, damn, it's been about 8 or 9 years. It's been a minute. And we talked, and I said, man, we need to keep in touch. We got to do a better job. She was like, man, I know. She was like, I'm gonna call you. So we're gonna talk. Because we got to catch up. It's been so long since I've talked, but it was good seeing her and the crew. We have a pretty nice sized campus. So honestly, there were some people that showed up at homecoming that I found out on social media later that they were there, but I didn't see them. So, I mean, it happens. But homecoming is always interesting when you see people, especially, this year with the pandemic, you got people walking around with masks on. So I took a bunch of pictures. I took some selfies with some friends, but there's some people that you just don't know. And one of the things that I realized is I'm bad with names, right? I'm really, really bad with names. And if you're ever with me, you can tell if I know somebody based on my reaction to what I say when I see them. If I hit you with the, hey, what's up, lady? What's good? What's good? I don't know you. I mean, I know you, but I don't know your name. And so, I'm bad with names. Like, I'll never forget a face. I always remember a face, but I'm bad with names. And, with, like I said, with the pandemic, you had some people who had, mask on, others that didn't, but, everybody don't look the same like how they did 25 years ago. Everybody, for the most part, has gained some weight. I mean, I'm not even the size that I was when I was in college. I still look the same, I think. But that's just what it is. So it's like you can see some people, and some people have, gotten bigger, and you may or may not reckon. And then there's some that got smaller. I got a couple of teammates that were big when we were in school, and they lost weight for health reasons. So they're really, really much smaller now. And that's a good thing. But homecoming just makes me realize, like, I'm bad with names. I'm really, really bad with names. And it's funny because it's like I saw a couple of people that I'm friends with on Facebook, and I don't know their name. I don't know their names. And I got to do better at that. But again, I don't forget faces. I'm really, really good with faces, and I'm very good at having a conversation with you without ever mentioning your name. I think that's a lost art, being able to have a conversation. I tell my wife this all the time. Like, if I don't introduce you to him or her by name, then I don't know them. I remember their face and I was cool with them, but I don't remember. Um, and she's kind of gone along with that. But no, I'm really bad with names. Here's what I always say: people will see you at homecoming and remember you from what they remembered you for at school. That's it. Like nothing more, nothing less. So whether it be the fact that you were the guy who, I don't know, caught the game winning touchdown pass against your rival, or you was the fly girl back in school and used to try to play high post. Um, or if you were the girl who had sex with five guys in the dorm. Or if you were the guy who got stomped out at the frat party. People will remember you from what they remember you in school for. So it doesn't matter when you come back to homecoming and let's say you were lame when you were in school, or because I'll say that because some people honestly were pretty lame at school when we were in school. And college is a really interesting place because particularly on a black college campus, because we're not a monolith of people. Like we're very very different. I remember just being from Florence, South Carolina, and then going to South Carolina State in Orangeburg, South Carolina, and meeting people from all across the state of South Carolina from in places that I never even heard of. And then got people from all across the country. We had people from out of this country that went to school there. So it was just like, wow, like we're not the same. People think, oh yeah, it's a black college, black kids. It'll be blah blah blah. No, it's different, very different, and it's a beautiful thing and a beautiful experience. I would tell anybody. The HBCU experience is one that I've said before, and I'll say it again. It's worth repeating. If I could bottle it up and put it in a bottle and sell it, I would probably be Jeff Bezos. I mean, I would make that much money from it, honestly. Um, but yeah, people remember what they remember you for. So it's like, you got some people that, let's say she was the fly girl that, tried to play high post when we were in school. And now, after a couple of kids and everything, she ain't maybe as fly as she once was. um, but people are people, man. So, I think there was a time where earlier after I got out of school, um, man, I say probably about the first 10 years of being an alum, when you went back to school for homecoming, and most schools can identify with this. When you went back, it was um who you were versus who you are now. Um, because on your campus, again, people know you. You can be who you want to be on social media. And, if you know me personally, Kyle and 12 Kyle are the same. I don't get on this microphone and become somebody that I'm not. The conversations I have here, the same conversations I'd have in Bethea Hall or I'd have at Belcher Hall, wherever. Um, but it was things change obviously over a period of time, and you know, whether that's your social media status or your marital status or your financial status. Because I've seen people and known people that if they kind of if they messed up in the game, they're not coming back to homecoming. If they're going through a divorce, they're not coming back to homecoming. If their pockets ain't right, because you're gonna spend money at homecoming. You just are. I mean, most people like me don't live where the school is located, so it's gonna the cost of travel. Whether or not you got to fly or drive and hotel and all of this good stuff like that. So I mean, you're gonna spend money going wherever you go for your homecoming. That's a given. Um, I'm fortunate in that I only live 3 hours away from the school, but if I lived in Minneapolis, I'd have to fly, rent a car, get a hotel room, blah blah. I mean, so it can be, So I've seen people where they have skipped out on homecoming because financially it just wasn't feasible, and I get it. I mean, like we have 4 kids, so I don't think I don't think there was ever a time where we took all of our kids with us. Like this year, we did not take um our son Brandon and our daughter Skylar. They stayed here with their grandparents, but I mean, it's been years where we've taken our kids, um, but for the most part, it can be expensive. So I understand how and why some people, you know, may feel like, okay, well, I'm just not straight right now to go. And as I mentioned at the beginning, this is my first homecoming in the last 5 years. So, you know, for whatever reason, I don't know I mean, like a couple of years, like, especially as the kids got older, Cameron was playing football. I was coaching him, and then Dion started in the band, and just depending on the week that homecoming landed, whether it was up in the air whether or not I was going or not. So I'm gonna try to make it my plan to come back each year as I did. But like my first 10 years out of school, I didn't miss a homecoming. And it's interesting because some people, honestly, not just at South Carolina State, but a lot of schools, they graduate and never come back. I don't know why. Everybody has their reasons. And there's also, whatever attachment or connection that they have with the school. Um, so it just depends. And then I think also I mentioned earlier, like your connection to people, to your fellow alums, is what normally used to be a driving force for you to go back to school. But with the advent of social media, we're now constantly talking to our friends and stuff that we went to school with. So, it's like, do I really want to go to homecoming to see everybody that I see on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram? That's a call you got to make. But everybody's not on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And to be honest, even the people that I saw that I see on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, it's still dope to see them and hug them and talk to them. I will say your conversations at homecoming are really, really interesting. Just to give you an example, like our tailgates are huge. And this year was different because tailgating, they the game homecoming game normally starts at 1:30. And then so you have the on a quote unquote normal homecoming, you'd have the homecoming parade that would go from like 9 to noon. And then at noon, people start making their way to the stadium, inside the stadium, and then game kicks off at 1:30, right? And so that's normally how it goes. But because of COVID, there was no parade, so they decided at South Carolina State this year to push the game back to 3:30. So great weather, heat. So and no parade to get up for. So people, so if people partied Friday night, they probably just kind of laid around, kind of took it slow. But it also gave you a chance for those who were tailgating. I know people that were tailgating, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. So they were out there early drinking. So, you know, especially when you get older, you get in your 30s and 40s, even older, how that liquor goes all day, how you handle it is it could be hit or miss. And so yeah, that was interesting. Um but I think for the most part it worked out. I don't know next year. I mean, hopefully we won't have same COVID restrictions or what have you. Hopefully COVID will be somewhat of a thing of the past. Um but next year I think they'll probably it'll probably be back at the regular time. But I like the idea. I mean, it gave people a chance to spend more time tailgating, spend more time socializing, um, a chance to walk around and see the campus and just kind of reminisce. Being on campus always brings back memories for me. One of the more obvious memories is something that I talked about on the podcast earlier this year. Bethea Hall, which was the dorm where I stayed in for 3 years. Bethea Hall's no longer there. So it's always weird to walk past or drive past, but what used to, because it's now an engineering building or something like that. And it ain't the same. I mean, like, it just don't look the same. I mean, like, just imagine going to your old stomping grounds and, somebody put up $1 million condo. Like you're looking like, damn, I can't even bring my kid here to say like, yo, I used to stay in that dorm, right? I used to be in that, see that window right there? That was my room, um, so that's a little disappointing. And honestly, with growth and development, some things just aren't what they used to be. Like, I remember when I got on campus, I called my brother. I said, "Well, I'm in front of the band hall," and he was like, "My brother was on the band," and he was like, "The band hall or the old band hall?" And I was like, "There's an old band hall." He was like, "Yeah, the band hall where we used to be isn't there anymore." And I was like, "Well, that's where I'm standing. I'm standing right here in front of the, I guess, old band hall." He's like, "Yeah, there's a new one that's down the street." And I was like, "Oh, okay." um, yeah, man, I didn't know. I mean, like, who knew? Um, but yeah, so things change. But there's a memory. I'll say this about South Carolina. Anybody else can say this about their campus. There's a memory on every inch of your campus. You got a memory for if it's a tree, something happened around that tree. Obviously, each dorm has a memory. Um, for me, the stadium, um, Oliver C. Dawson Stadium, Willie Jeffries Field. The stadium has so many memories, and I think that was one of the cool things was um, when I went to the game, when I finally went into, because I went in the game right after it started. Uh, I went with some of my teammates, and we sat and we watched. We sat in the end zone, and we were able to kind of see the whole field and break down the game and stuff like that. And that was really really dope. And it dawned on me like I haven't sat with my teammates and actually watched the game probably since I left. Because normally when I go to the game, I would go. Sharice and I would go together, or sometimes I go with my brother or something like that. Like I can't ever remember being with 10 teammates watching the game. I don't have those memories. So that leads me to believe it probably never happened up until this year. But that was dope. Um, just seeing the field and seeing the stadium and just bringing back memories of practices and even being on the practice field at the tailgate was you know very symbolic and very memorable because almost died on that practice field a couple of times, not literally but felt like it. um but there's a memory of each part of the campus, so I think I encourage people to go to their homecomings. um Oh, by the way, we won. I guess I should let you know that we did beat Morgan State. Um, I can't even remember what the score was, but we beat Morgan State pretty bad. Um, yeah, and Morgan, I don't think well, I know we never lost to Morgan. Um, Shout out to my boy B Cox from the Vault Classic Review podcast. He's a Morgan State alum. But yeah, I don't think we ever lost to Morgan. At least not that. I know we didn't lose when I was there, um but I left. Me and my teammates left after halftime after we got a chance to see the Marching 101 band, our marching band, world renowned marching band. um, but when I left, we went back to the tailgate, right? So again, I said the tailgate's on the practice field. So from the practice field, you can see the scoreboard, right? So I see the scoreboard, and I just happened to look up at one point, and I saw the score, and it was like I looked at it and it said fourth quarter, 8 minutes left. And I was like, damn, this game is going slow. Cause like we had been out there, I don't know, man, it felt like a good hour and it was just moving really slow. And so curiosity got the best of me the next day, that Sunday. And I looked at the box score. And the box score will tell you what the attendance was and how long the game was and all the stuff like that. When I looked at the box score said in a recap of the game lasted 4 hours and 35 minutes. No football game should last 4 hours and 35 minutes. Listen, NFL games only last 3 hours. That's why when you watch NFL games, The game comes on at 1 o'clock, and it's usually off by 4, maybe 4:15. I don't know how or why this game lasted that long. I do know that we won convincingly. So I'm assuming that Morgan State probably was throwing the ball a lot. And so if you're throwing the ball, if you have a lot of incomplete passes, you'll stop the clock. Excuse me. But again, there's no reason for a 4 hour and 35-minute football game. So South Carolina, I don't know who I don't know how that happened, but South Carolina State and Morgan State, y'all need to tighten up. That's ridiculous. Suffice to say, a lot of fans weren't in the stadium by the time that game ended because people wanted to get back out to tailgating and stuff and getting drunk, having a good time. But yeah, game shouldn't have been that long. One thing I will say about homecomings is, particularly HBCU homecomings, is that you will have schools that will claim that they have the best homecoming. I've been to quite a few different homecomings. Howard claims to have a great the greatest homecoming. Spelman, Morehouse. I've been to quite a few homecomings. Since my son Dion has been at Alabama A&M, been to Alabama and A&M's homecoming. There's a school in Greensboro. Shout out to King Jern from the Frocast, who he's a big fan of this school. School in Greensboro by the name of North Carolina A&T. Let me get that out. North Carolina A&T State University. They claim to have the greatest homecoming on earth. They call it GHO. It stands for Greatest Homecoming on Earth. I've been to their homecoming. It's live, it's nice. But I'll say this. I mean, anytime you have a collection of a bunch of black people and there's parties and stuff going on, it's going to be a dope time. It is what it is. So I can't say that South Carolina State's homecomings are any better than Howard's. I can't say that Howard's any better than Gramblin's. I can't say the Gramblin's any better than, FAMU's, and FAMU's no better than North Carolina A&T, so forth and so on, right? But for GHO, I did go to GHO, North Carolina A&T's greatest homecoming on earth. This was in 1994. And I distinctly remember this homecoming because for whatever reason, North Carolina A&T put us on the schedule for their homecoming. So normally, let me let you in a little secret before I get out of here. It's widely known that you put a team on your schedule for homecoming because you expect to beat them. So for whatever reason, North Carolina A&T put us on their homecoming schedule. And we proceeded to beat the brakes off of them. The score was 46-24. So, hey, that wasn't a good idea. But yeah, it was a dope homecoming for us. And last but not least, I think it goes without saying, for all HBCUs, I think it's important that we win. And what I mean by that is we continue to love, support, financially support our HBCUs. I might have a joke or two about FAMU or North Carolina A&T, but ultimately, if you know me, I'm behind all HBCUs because I'm a proud alum and a proud product of an HBCU. And when one of us struggles, we all struggle. When one of us succeeds, we all succeed. And I think we need to keep winning. We need to stay behind each other and continue to fight for each other and fight for ourselves. And in the case of South Carolina State, we're trending upwards. I'm very pleased with our interim president and what I've seen thus far. I like the direction that we're going. I think for a couple of years we didn't have a primary direction in which where we were going, but I'm very satisfied, and I think it's important for us to win on and off the field because ultimately, when the school wins, the students win, and when the students win, obviously you become alums, and alums win because we got the money we're going to give back. So But yeah, I had to get on here and talk about homecoming season. If you have not experienced a homecoming at an HBCU, do yourself a favor and get familiar and go to one. Go to several. Um, if you want to see a live one, you want to come kick it with me, come to South Carolina State's homecoming next year. I will definitely be there. That's going to do it for me. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for checking out this edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I'm your boy, 12 Kyle. I'll catch you guys next time. 5 G's.